Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. David Benyachek here, your host on the Wow Truck Show. Earlier on the show, we were talking about getting perspectives on taking better truck photos, and we're going to switch gears a little bit, and we're now going to talk about perspective on relationships. And don't worry, I'm not going to be talking about dating. I'm not going to be talking about marriage, none of those things, although this could potentially help in those areas. I'm thinking of, getting along with that person on the loading dock that's hard to get along with. I'm thinking about, that dispatcher that you're really kind of not seeing eye to eye with. There's a whole bunch of relationships that I know that you have in your day-to-day that it can either make your day awesome or it can make your day hell. And so today on the show, it is my pleasure to have a friend of mine, Dr. Randy Johnson, who is a psychologist specializing in relationships, to talk about a subject which is also the title of his latest book, Could Questions Be the Answer? Welcome, Randy.
Hey, Dave. Thanks. Glad to be here. Enjoyed you.
So when I first invited you on this show, I thought, you know what, like when I read your book, I thought truckers need to read this and transport companies need to read this because it can make their life a lot better. I had no clue that you have any, trucking experience, relationship with the trucking industry. I was going to do that, but you have that. So I discovered that yesterday. What was that?
Oh, well, I have a bit of a sordid history with the trucking with trucks and trucking industry. One of my first significant experience was when I worked on a farm. We used to have to haul wheat, and we used to do the loading and unloading. Well, it was one day I was given this fairly new truck. It had maybe 700 miles on it, and I got on this one gravel road, loose gravel. And you know what loose gravel and speed does, hey? You lose control.
You do.
I lost control and we rolled the thing 2.5 times.
Okay, so we're not on you here. We're not on this, having you on this show to teach our guys and girls about better driving.
You know what? You wouldn't want to come to me.
Randy's school of how not to drive a truck.
Yeah, so you know what? The guy that was with me, he got injured, went to the hospital. I had to stay and load the thing back up. We rolled it up on the side, put the load into another truck, and it was just one big bad nightmare.
I don't know if they're going to want to listen to you now, Randy.
I did improve my skills, though, when I went working for another trucking company, Regina Cartage and Storage. So I had really good reviews there. I was able to do whatever I need to do.
Awesome.
In a way. I avoided those low bridges when you had too high of a top.
Yeah.
So it was good. Some of the other guys, they didn't have that.
Yeah.
They tried to take the bridge with them.
Okay. Yeah.
So I thought I gained a little bit of knowledge.
Well, but I just want to make it clear, listeners, Randy's not going to be talking about how to drive the truck better. We've got him here to talk about what he's an expert at, and that I think it actually is a really important topic. And so, Randy, you've just released this book, Could Questions Be the Answer?
Yeah.
Tell us, and I know you weren't thinking of truckers at the time, probably when you wrote this book, but why'd you write it? What's it about? What's behind it?
One of the number one problems we have dealing with people is communication or lack of communication or pure communication. So when I was thinking of this topic, I certainly had the skills that you get trained to help people in your counseling office with, but that gets a little bit cumbersome when you're trying to work with people just like on the street or in an office or in a trucking warehouse or whatever. It can't be like, so did I hear you say, could you please repeat what it's a little bit more direct. You don't have the time to really dance around this communication skill building stuff. So for me, I try to really look at communication. How can I really simplify this in a way that can help us to get to the point sooner without the conflicts that often come up in the dialogue? So this is where I really wanted to have the information for people to be able to understand why this approach. Yep. And even then some examples as to how to apply this approach.
I like it. Simplify communication. And it is important. I will tell you some good news. My many friends in the trucking industry, they don't have to learn how to be direct. unless they're telling stories. Other than that, what I love about the trucking community is they have no trouble being direct, but it's just how to be direct.
That's right.
And build relationships instead of tear them down.
Yeah. You know what? It's across the board, right? I mean, this is some issue that a lot of people in relationships have. You know, again, whether you're talking to the drugstore owner and you're trying to purchase something or other, you know, you can be direct. You may not get what you want.
Yeah.
But you know, at least you're communicating. But if you want to communicate in a more effective way, you know, this is what we're trying to help everybody to do.
Cool. When I read your book, here's the one thing that kind of stuck out at me is that, you know, the nature of trucking is you're isolated a whole lot in your cab. And it's true that when I'm isolated, the danger is, and this is why questions are so important, the danger is my thoughts, the more I focus on them, I don't have any questions anymore because they become my truth. And so as I started suspecting someone of something, put me 3 days in an isolated room and I will walk out convinced that they are the that I know they are. And you're saying that isn't always true.
Well, you know, so communication isn't just between people, it's even within yourself, right?
Yeah.
So if you're asking, say, the person at the store, where is this particular product? Okay, you're going to get help, and they're going to show you, or they're going to tell you, or whatever, so that you get whatever it is you come to get. Okay, when you have your own thoughts, are you asking why are you thinking that thought? Or what are you hoping to accomplish by wanting to take that action? Are you having that dialogue within your own mind about really what is going to be good or not so good?
Yeah.
So when you're in this cab for these 3 days heading down this long road, you can really meditate on what it is that you think is right.
Yeah.
Or you can start to explore yourself, well, why do I think that? Or are there other things that I could actually think about that might actually change my perspective a bit?
I think the statement actually in my mind that makes questions so important is that we should all realize, because we've all spoken out of our thought and regretted it, is that I don't know everything. And as that statement is true, whenever we're in doubt, or whenever we're having to have a difficult conversation, it's way better to inquire than accuse.
That's right. And you know, like just even from a functional perspective, like so your brain, how it works, the more angry or upset you are, the less you'll actually be able to think about the any other answer. Yeah. Unless you break it up by asking yourself the question. That's how you intervene in this closing down, shutting down, thinking only the way that you think. Yeah. Because the brain was designed to do that. Yeah. But you don't have to just fall prey to how it was designed. You can break that up.
So I want to talk about two things that I think really are powerful when you ask questions. And they're related to the leadership stuff that I do and just human nature, us humans. Humans are happier when we're in control. And questions put the other person in control. And I'll give you one example. I remember when I worked for Shell and there was this customer whose delivery of lubricants was going to be late. And I knew that them running out was a huge issue if that ever happened to them. And so I was quite sensitive about it. And I was ready to make a whole bunch of phone calls and pay like thousands of dollars to have it couriered to the customer to make sure they got it on time. And then this little voice inside of me said, Dave, just call them. Mm-hmm. Tell them what's happening. Commit that if they truly need it, you'll spend the bucks to get it there. But ask them if it's really that important.
Very good.
And when I made that phone call, all of a sudden the guy's, well, actually, Dave, no, we still got a ton left. And if you deliver it by 2 weeks Friday, we're all good. But buddy, I appreciate that phone call. And it was like, whoa, okay, write that down. Lesson learned. Yeah. Before you go ahead and expend a lot of effort and a lot of reacting to something, find out if it's important or not, and in that way, ask the question. And you know what? When I asked the question, I put him in control. He could have said, Dave, spend $5,000, courier that because I need it.
Yep.
I earned brownie points, but he said, Dave, take 2 weeks.
Very good. Very good.
So this control thing, like, it's huge.
You know, like, we feel we have to have control within our own grasp.
Yeah.
Right? We don't realize that we actually can supersede that by giving somebody else control, because it's you giving control.
Yeah.
That's control in itself.
Yeah.
You have to think about what are the possible outcomes.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you don't, then you may react in a way that you don't like. Because if they would have said, no, we need it now, you could have been ticked at that, or you could have accepted. Well, you already thought of that as an option.
Yeah.
I'll do it if I have to.
Yeah.
Okay, but if I don't have to, let's check and see if that's a possibility.
And I'm going to give you the knife, and you can hit me with it, or you can do whatever.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how when you put people in control, they usually, out of appreciation,
Yeah.
choose the option that is most beneficial for you.
Absolutely. Dave, you can't imagine how often that is. It's like people melt. Like in my office, when I see this in these conflicts, whether it's siblings or whether it's couples or whatever, that really takes the whole temperature of that room right down.
Okay.
Because one, they can't believe that somebody's doing this,
Yeah.
and then two, they don't even know what to do with all that power that
Yeah.
you just gave them.
Yeah. All right.
So that action is very powerful in itself.
Okay.
If you feel you have to have control, you're always going to be hitting walls.
Yeah.
Because people will fight you on that.
And if you're hitting 5 walls in the same day, there's a common denominator. It's me.
There was an old clip they used to have, is that it would say, I've seen the enemy and it's me.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can be our own worst enemy if we really feel we have to have control over everything.
Yeah.
And I know I'm exaggerating here, but that's sometimes what it feels like if I'm giving up, that I've lost everything. Well, it's not true.
Do you know what? It's like, I've learned this because we all want to control. It's a human nature, and it's not going to escape you. Every single day, you're going to have the urge to want to control your situation. Yeah. But when you do let it go, and the question is the way to let it go, it's amazing what freedom you get. And it's just, it's really empowering. So the second C word I want to talk about, I guess we're going to CC people in this interview today. So the first was control. The second is certainty. And I want to bring it back specifically to trucking. And then we're going to talk about a huge opportunity for people to be part of a future call where we're going to just take questions and answers. And we're going to take people's questions from the trucking industry. And we're going to be there, and we're going to spend an entire show just saying, okay, these are the common things that we go through. And what sorts of questions, what role does questions play in making those situations better? So thank you for offering to do that. I'm excited about that. Today's conversation is setting that up. It's around certainty. And that's the C word. And when I think of trucking, my application is this. It's in the dispatcher-truck driver relationship. The dispatcher is the face of the company for most drivers. And the truth is, both come into that relationship with expectations.
Absolutely.
And the magic thing in life is, if we get what we expect, we're happy.
Yeah.
If we don't get what we expect, we're not. And too many relationships between dispatchers and truck drivers in my history, in my experience, are ruined and go sour, not because they couldn't give them what they expected, but because they didn't know what they expected, because they never asked questions before the relationship began.
Very good. Yeah, absolutely. If you don't clarify what it is you're thinking, and you're not helping the other person to clarify what they're thinking, then you have that uncertainty that exists between the two of you in that context. And that uncertainty, when it grows out of proportion, creates conflict. So if you want to avoid that conflict, then you have to create some certainty, some real clear understandings that the two of you have going forward, whatever that is.
Yeah. And I love it. It isn't conflict until we make it real, by reacting
That's right. Yeah,
to the situation.
absolutely.
And we do that. No, I love that. So control and certainty are big parts of the power of asking questions, and there's huge implications to what drivers do every single day. I think it's a good time to take a break, listen to some music. When we come back, more from Dr. Randy Johnson. We're going to talk about 3 situations that we can apply very specifically where it's good to ask questions and what sort of questions we might ask to gain a different perspective so that our interactions with people take a different course where they would have gone negative and potentially steering them to a more positive place, which helps everyone involved. So enjoy the music. We'll come back with that and a perspective on life on the road. Last week, we had Ty Jam, who is one of the co-creators of the All Out Big Rigs No Limits group. And every month they hold a photo contest, and we've been showcasing the stories of people that win their photo contest. This past month, it was Justin Price, a pretty cool driver with J Transport. And when we're done talking with Randy and applying could questions be the answer, we're going to gain Justin's perspective on life on the road. This is a road veteran that you're going to want to listen to. So enjoy the music. We'll see you back in a bit. All right, Randy. So, my scars have healed over the years from times where I recognized I should have asked a question instead of just react. So let's run through 3 situations just very quickly to talk about them. And so the first is, I've gotten scars in the past when I've reacted to an email or a text that I thought was dishing me, that I thought was insulting me. Why are questions good? And what sort of questions did you ask? You get this text and the thing about text is you can't hear the person's tone.
That's exactly it. So you're trying to collect data so that you can understand. Otherwise, you will make assumptions.
Yeah.
So most of us, we make assumptions.
Yeah.
Because that just helps you to save time, save energy, all that kind of stuff. However, they also create all kinds of problems, which doesn't save you any time at all.
Yes.
So when you make this assumption that they're dissing you or whatever it is that you think they're doing, then you're going to go on the defense immediately. That's how your brain works. It's there to protect you, your integrity, your whatever you think about yourself, and so on and so forth. So then you're going to come out feisty in a way to make sure you say, hey, back down. I'm not going to take this.
Yeah.
But it's the effect afterwards, when the dust is settled, what do you got?
Yeah.
You have this conflict, you have this broken relationship, or at least a greater distance between the two of you, and whatever you want, you're not going to be able to get because you've just blown it up.
You've made something that didn't need to be personal, very personal.
Exactly. So when you stop and think, okay, what is this person really trying to say to me? I could assume it, or I could actually just really ask.
Yeah.
If I'm a straight up kind of person, I'm going to say, what do you mean?
Yep.
What are you trying to say to me? I don't quite understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
That's a straight up.
Yeah.
Okay? It's a straight up question.
Yeah.
And what it does, it puts that other person on the defense in some sense.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I wasn't trying to be offensive, or they could say, well, I'm ticked at you, or however it's going to be. Either it'll confirm your assumption or it'll just disconfirm your assumption. Either way, you're going to have this truth come to the surface that you both will be able to work out much more effectively.
As Jack Nicholson didn't say in A Few Good Men, you can handle the truth. Because we all have way too much crap in our lives, and we don't need any more that we create on our own.
Yeah.
On that one, I have to say there are times where I didn't even ask a question. I did, but I didn't respond on text. I picked up the phone and called them, and the second I heard the tone of their voice, it answered the question.
Oh, very good. Yeah, that extra piece of information, that data that you collected, saved you, saved them.
You've got to work with your dispatcher. You've got to work with your customer day after day after day after day after day. It's actually, it's not hard stuff if we just step back and think about it, and the question's the way.
There's so much more research coming out in terms of communication and this texting, emailing, and what is lost in terms of relationship, right? So when I can't hear how you are saying this, I can't see your face, and maybe you might be expressing, some real wanting to connect kind of expressions.
Yeah.
That's half, if not more, of the information that you need in order to be able to respond to it.
Yes.
Or at least not react. And so if you don't have all the information, then guess what?
Ask the question.
Yep.
Now, goes to my second point. Asking questions when you're not sure. And I mean, that sounds easy, right? If I'm not sure, I just ask the question. But my experience, and actually my weakness was, I didn't want to look bad in certain situations. So pride got in the way of asking the question. And I hung up the phone and thought, I'll figure it out.
So one of the things that kind of shows up in pride is this, we've been a victim sometime or other to somebody's comments, or somebody shamed us for something or embarrassed us or whatever. Well, we don't like that feeling.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I'm not going to have that experience again. So I don't want to be a victim, so I'm going to come out on the offense.
Yeah.
To make sure that I'm not a victim. So that comes out in this pride reaction. So that response then, of course, is going to obviously limit any kind of further interaction because you now have set your position.
Okay, now I feel like I'm on the psychologist couch, Randy, because now I'm laying there and I'm kind of going, okay. So what was it that triggered, this is the question to myself, that triggered my unwillingness or fear to ask this question, and how do I deal with that? Because it's killing me time after time after time.
Yeah, so what we do is we try to track, okay, when was the first time you felt embarrassed in a situation like this? So we go back to that moment and unravel it a bit just so we can understand the belief that you established when you felt that experience.
Which is usually a lie, because we didn't question it at the time.
Which is usually a lie. So every experience that you have has an opportunity to create a belief or reinforce a belief and a feeling.
Yeah.
So those things are always together. Sometimes we cannot remember the actual belief, I'm no good, or they think I'm the worst person, or I'm an embarrassment to people. Whatever that lie is that you established that moment, you're now left with this feeling. And whenever that feeling comes up, you get defensive.
Yeah.
You may have forgotten the history of this, the origin of this feeling, but you haven't forgotten the feeling.
So to our listeners, because I'm speaking myself when I say this, is that if you find yourself constantly frustrated with others, like just constantly, like your days and your weeks are consumed with the idiotic behaviors of other people.
Yep.
There is a common denominator, and it was always me. You owe yourself these sort of conversations to make your day easier. You don't win by being mad at people all the time. And so much confrontation never needed to happen. So the last one is kind of, it seems ironic, but when I was sure, I've learned to ask questions.
Right. So when, even though you have the confidence of remembering the experience or the information or whatever that requires, to protect the integrity of the relationship that you want to ask questions.
Yeah.
Because even though you may know, they may not be clear. And by you elevating this understanding, you've now strengthened this relationship in a way that they may not even understood it. And you positively influenced them into a better direction. Well, isn't that what we want to do to help people in every area of our lives?
Definitely.
We don't need more tension, more conflict. We need more integrity and more relational
more friends.
Positivity. More friends.
Less enemies.
Now,
this, in my life, I've learned that it's really important up front. So do you need to always ask a question even though you think you're sure? Maybe not always, but especially when relationships are new, or you're dealing with a customer for the first time, or you're sending a driver out for the first time, or you're working with a dispatcher for the first time. And it's not a trucking example, but it's one that makes me laugh to this day. My youngest daughter was 4 years old, and Mummy was in the kitchen and asked her to go and organize the shoes. Because the shoes in the front lobby were scattered all over the place and thrown here and there. And we had a shoe rack, which is a natural place to organize shoes.
Of course,
right?
Yes, of course.
And so 5 minutes later, she comes back all proud, around the corner, smile on her face. And she's a do-gooder. Like, Kira, I love you. And she says, I'm done. And so we walk around the corner, and here are all the shoes, neatly paired side by side, but forming this winding path from the front door to... And we just howled, of course.
Oh, man, that's good.
Never assume is the old phrase.
Yeah.
And questions are so crucial. And these are the sort of things where you blow up at an employee, or you blow up at a boss, or you blow up at, but you know what? It wasn't a conflict. The intention wasn't bad. And we could have prevented it just by simply, when things are new, being a little bit more detailed around their understanding of what organizing the shoes are, or pacifying the customer is, or...
So even if you know you're right, even if you know what to do, if you assume the other person should, okay, then you both can lose. So this is why I really underscore this whole integrity of the relationship. Is that you can help the other person to have this understanding that you already have. And you win more of their commitment. In their support, and whatever it is you might need in the future, this person can be there because you didn't embarrass them, make them feel ashamed, or look like an idiot, or call them stupid, or anything else that you could have done that you could have assumed. As a result of assuming, I should say. So this is why, for me, it doesn't hurt to ask a simple question, even every time. It may sound at first as, well, that's a stupid question. Why? They should know the answer to this one, or whatever. No, that there is one thing we always say: there is no stupid question, for sure. It's just you're going to protect something here by making sure.
And most people, they think, this is soft stuff. But here's the scoop. I mean, research shows in business, for example, that supervisors, managers usually spend 90% of their day dealing with urgencies. And urgencies are created by, and I think even in our individual lives, whether you've got the business card or not, you're dealing with urgencies which are either real or emotional, both. They're consuming your day. And the root cause is misunderstanding. That
little extra time, and we all stumble with this. I don't care how many years I've done this as a therapist, I still make mistakes too, okay? I don't communicate perfectly, but can I correct it faster now than I did before? Absolutely.
Definitely.
Okay? But where I can, sometimes, like if I'm going to a customer service counter, for example, I will think through what are the questions I'm going to ask, what do I really want, and then what are their responses going to be? So I'm now kind of in my head got a bit of a dialogue that I'm anticipating. Well, that helps me to stay on track. There was, for a while there, I never used to go to customer service because I was too afraid to. Then I used to go and intimidate them. So when my wife started saying, be nice, I had to start to understand what do I want, and what kind of dialogue do I want in order to achieve that. And that's what I practice more.
I like it. And so, as you're listening to this, we've stayed fairly high level as an introduction. I want to make this point. Questions and learning to ask questions, if the one thing you get out of it is it's going to make your life easier.
Absolutely.
It's going to reduce the crap. Irregardless of what anyone else does, this is totally in our listeners' hands. Then it's something you want to learn. And so, Randy, I thank you. We're going to have an opportunity, and I'm going to give them times and dates later in the show where we're going to dedicate an entire show to digging deeper. And so if you go to wowtrucks.com, questions or /questions, it's going to be the page on this show. We're going to invite people in the transport industry to submit their questions, be part of the Zoom call where we dig down deep and give specific recommendations for specific situations to make their lives better. And
absolutely.
I thank you for doing that. Thank you. I'm looking forward to exploring more. Again, that website is wowtrucks.com /questions. And we're going to have Randy back, and it's going to be a blast. Keep on trucking, my friends. Hope your day's going well and the roads that you're on are treating you well. We're going to take a small music break, but when we come back, Mr. Justin Price, driver for J Transport, winner of last month's contest for All Out Big Rigs No Limits on Facebook. We're going to get his view on life on the road, what's working, what's not, and just hear from an incredible gentleman that is a pleasure to celebrate. Enjoy the music. We'll see you in a bit.